Hey, I'm Daniel Berger, and this is Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. Welcome to the podcast where Metro New York real estate meets great stories and a douse of humor. Forget the dry sales talk. Here we dive into the fun and unexpected moments of real estate. Join me each week as we explore Westchester, Long Island, the Bronx, and more. You'll hear about the people, the places, and the crazy situations that make this industry so interesting. Thanks to our sponsor, Remax Prestige Properties, we're ready to share the lighter side of real estate. Whether you're a pro, a buyer, or just curious, we've got something for everyone. Ready for today's adventure? Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker with Daniel Berger. Today we have Shaune Corbett from True West Realty Group. He's been with them for over 17 years. He's also the host of the Real Estate Success DFW. It's Dallas-Fort Worth for those of you who aren't in the know. Tons of successes, over $500 million of closed business. I think he has the #1 podcast in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And with that, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, you bet, Daniel. Thank you.
First, give me a little 17 years at the same brokerage. Give me a little bit about what TRV West Realty Group is. And I guess that's how you make your money. And what is that about?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I'm actually probably a little over 20 years in real estate. I got a license early on. I had a company I was working for. I had no idea I was going to get into real estate. And I was vice president of human resources for the company. And they had a custom home builder that was building $1 million homes. So I made them an offer. I said, hey, let me list your houses and you pay for my license and eventually my broker license and all my costs, including education, E&O, all of that. And I'll list your houses for free. Okay. So that was the offer. That's how I got started in real estate. And it got me doing transactions. And then I realized it's not so hard to list houses and then just, start negotiating contracts and doing all that. So I go from that to showing houses, and I learned how to be a buyer agent. I never worked for a broker. I never had any training or anything outside of just kicking tires and figuring it out. I don't work with people I don't know. That's one of my general philosophies. That's a little bit outside of the way most agents do real estate. I'm really intentional about my sphere of influence. I solve real estate problems, and people pay me to solve real estate problems, the way I think about my business model. I started the brokerage. It's a made-up name. It's called True West Realty. Is actually the brand. It's True West Realty. And I did that for about 10 years, got up to about 10 agents. And then I decided I didn't want to deal with any of that anymore. And I cut ties. I started completely back over, joined EXP. So EXP is it is my broker. And I've been there for about 7 years. I'm a 7-time icon is basically their highest level that they have available. I close about 100 transactions a year, and I only work with people I know and trust. So that's been my premise. And I teach others. I coach and I train and I teach others to do the same things that I'm doing. And right now I do it all for free. I have a lot of classes that I teach, and I just have them come and I tell them how to build their sphere of influence and how to fill all their buckets without spending money and start building other successful agents, because I know at some point it'll pay off. So that's my world in a nutshell of how I got into it. And then what my business model is, it's just people I know.
So that's interesting because you have a lot more years of experience, almost triple or double for sure. I do work with people that I don't know because the people that I don't know then become the people that I do know. But so I'm assuming then if someone that you know refers someone that they know, I'm assuming that
Totally
counts
different.
then,
Yeah,
right?
totally different. Yeah, that's not what I mean. Cold leads or Zillow, or I could work an open house, and I've done conversions. Honestly, I went back and looked last year. I had 95% sphere, 5% non-sphere, which means there are people that I might have met at an open house or met at different places that turned into a client over time. But people that are handed to me from other clients, no, that's sphere. To me, that's a connection. And yeah, I join new clubs, I join new events, I do different things, I meet new people, and we build some type of relationship. I establish and understand who they are. And then eventually they'll come back around and ask me for specific help in real estate. And that's where I get involved.
I think the biggest thing is you have to do what works for you. And I know that you are training people But a lot of training is not like this is the only way to do it. It's like here's a way to think about it, and you have to tailor that to your own needs and to what you bring to the table. So it's not right. It's not really about a cookie cutter. It's more you're opening people's eyes as to things to think about so that they can create their own craft and create their own business.
Yeah, for sure. And everyone should have a why for anything they do. Example, I did an interview with Josh Harley about 3 weeks ago. He's the founder of Fathom. Fathom has about 15,000 agents. Okay. They are the number ninth brokerage in the US. And we were discussing, and I talked to him. I said, I can teach you, this is why I do this. Okay. I can teach you everything I'm doing, Daniel, everything that I do, every step, every process. And Daniel, you're never going to be me. And the same thing with you, the way you do things and the way you could teach me everything that you're doing. I'm not going to replace you. So I look at why not give advice and help everyone because I think it will come back more beneficial in the end for everybody if we just work together and collaborate. I don't see other agents as enemies. And for some reason, I think the natural tendency is everyone's out for space and they're all competing with each other. You don't have to think about it that way. There's plenty of work out there. There's plenty of business. Find a space that you're really comfortable and you can be organic and natural, and then just follow through with it. But you got to have a why with anything that you do. When I teach sphere of influence, I always start with that. I say, hey, this is going to take work. You wouldn't think it would, but everybody talks about how to get more leads, more opportunities. You do an open house, you sign up for this lead source, put them in your CRM and let it just start cooking. That won't work, right? So the objective is we're going to have a conversion. We're going to find someone. We're going to get their email, their phone number. We're going to find connections, and we're going to stay in front of them so many times in a year to make sure we have a solid referral source that doesn't have to be a cold lead or a conversion. There should be no conversions. They should just think of you for real estate.
I agree a lot with that. So me being 8 or 9 years in, I actually love Zillow is how I built my business. I did 65 deals last year for $42 million in sales,
Mhm.
over 900,000 in GCI. And Zillow is my base, right? I find that I have success stories of Zillow leads turning into 12 transactions through friends and family. But again, you're right that you have to figure out what is your why and what are you going to do special. For me, being an older person but newer to real estate, how was I gonna tell people that I'm here? How am I gonna work? And so I felt like just trying to get transactions under my belt was going to be a way that I was going to help grow my sphere. You talked about like open houses. So of course, so as a broker, I also try to give my listings. I try to have my agents work the open houses to try to see what they can do. I have a couple of my agents have done masterful jobs of taking people from open houses and closing. They're like, oh, it's another one from your open house. And they're like, oh, that's your sixth one this year. So I find great joy in that I'm able to get more listings to be able to help people find buyers and buyers become sellers. But I actually don't make people sign in generally for open houses. I don't need I'll hand them my card and I'm like, if you want any help or whatever, call me, email me. And that's actually turned into a lot of my business where 6 months later, a year later, people are like, oh, I saw you in the open house and I liked what you were about and can you help us? So but everyone has to like, that's what I do. And that wouldn't work for everybody. Everyone has to figure out what works for them.
Can I give you some thoughts on all those items?
Sure.
You got a bunch of different things. One thing is, regardless of everyone's business, everyone should make sphere of influence a very large part of what they do. Otherwise, the cost of conversion is incredibly high. For example, if I'm passing out business cards at open house, I'm 1 in 50. Okay. I'm just giving you an example. You can take it or leave it. If I do open houses, if I'm having some type of conversion with them and I'm having a conversation, I don't do sign ins either. But if there is some type of connection or conversion and I feel like I can add value to whatever they're doing, then I'm going to get a phone number and email and I'm going to put them in my system and I'm going to stay in front of them, not by sending them necessarily listings. I could. I manually do it, by the way. I don't use CRMs. So if I meet someone at open house, let's say I go to an open house and I did a condo last year down the street from me, and it's a $500,000 condo. Every single person that went through, I had about 20 over 2 weekends. I text them all the latest condo that comes on the market and I text all of them at one time. I do it once a week. And it starts pulling out. What happens is it starts separating people. Hey, I'm no longer looking. Hey, I'm interested, but can you do it over here? And it starts creating, that's what I start adding the value add there, but only with people I have conversion or connection with. If they don't want to have anything to do with this and they're just kicking tires, yeah, I'm not gonna waste my time. I'm not gonna chase them. I'm not gonna try to convert anyone. That's another item. Every single person should have a niche. I believe a niche, the riches are in the niches, and you can still have your sphere of influence. And even for agents out there, they feel like if I niche military, if I niche first time home buyers, if I niche investors, it's going to cut me off from all other transaction types. And it's not true. Focus on something you have a lot of energy and passion about, create videos to describe it and talk about it and really connect with that audience. You are still going to get just the same amount of other opportunities. It doesn't change anything else. It just increases your flow and the best client that best fits your avatar. And then the last thing on Zillow, I'm 300,000 invested into Zillow. Okay. I haven't gone short on him. And I didn't use it for me. I used it for my team. I lost money from day one since I started with Zillow, and it's been 10 plus years of investing in them. Markets are different in different spaces. Okay. I would invest anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 a month in Zillow, and you think that should create a lot of opportunities, and it did. We'd get 20 to 30 leads a month. The conversions were incredibly challenging here in Dallas Fort Worth. And it's the same thing with Facebook leads. It's the same thing with Google leads. Any of those type of things, they don't have conversions here for some reason. Every time I sign up for these programs, they never convert. So I've just said, you know what? I'm not going about it that way anymore. I don't teach it. I don't do it. It's not my mission. It's not the way I do business. So I went straight to Sphere. And I'm good if you do FISBO cold calls, expired listing cold calls. That's fine. If that's your niche and you want to do it, go for it. Time block, set it up, do it every week, be consistent. But don't take away from staying in front of your sphere the right touches a year. And the reason why I say that is because it's really hard on you for 10 years to do cold client conversions. It's just so much easier to convert warm client conversions. They're just so much easier. It's not even close to the amount of effort. Your effort disappears.
I agree 100%. And I spend $12,000 a month on Zillow for my team, but I also have a marketing partner. So you're able to use lenders to help be your partners. So I'm paying half and they're paying half.
Yeah, I've never paid for it myself. I always had lender part. That's only my share. It's
Right.
expensive. Yeah,
Yeah, but you're 100% right. Every market's different, right? So I only know my market, right? Because that's where and as long as my return on investment is positive
sure.
or break even to positive, then, and again, it's a business decision, right? So as a leader of your P&L, you have to make decisions that make sense for your business. I'm still able to still do it, and I actually all of my leads go to my team. That's why I still do it. But again, I did build in the first probably 5 years, at least the first two before I was a broker, I would take them and then, but the fruits of the labor from that are continuously for me of referrals, people that I helped buy and then needed to sell. They had family members. They start to getting investments. So what you said about the touch points is so important. Once you have someone that knows that you have to let everyone in your sphere, right, know that you're in the business. And that's why I like doing a podcast or doing writing a book or things because you want to let people know that's what you're doing and then try to have some fun along the way. So I think that those are important things. Other things that I've tried to do is around the time of Thanksgiving, almost every year, I give away a gift. Some years it's been I would ship a pie. Last year I did a really nice throw blanket that had Remax name on it and my phone number like on in the corner. And what was interesting about that was everyone kept sending me pictures of their children and their animals in the blanket and made some fun of doing that. That's a way that you can keep ahead of it. But you're like you said, you need to have those touch points with your current clients and your past clients, and then everyone else in your sphere.
I'll say one thing that's really important because both of us, I wouldn't say, I know you're not in the recruiting space, but I look at agents at other places and wonder, like the flat fee transactional system has come in, right? So that's been a very big competitor here in Texas, and I'm sure in a lot of markets. The problem is that, yes, you don't pay much per transaction, but you're not selling any houses. And what I tell people is think about when you start. If you were to get into commercial, have you done any commercial before?
I've done some commercial, but most of it is residential.
So the way they teach getting into commercial is go 50-50 with someone in commercial, and you bring the client, you bring the deal, and you have them take you through the entire process, right? That's the way we're going to learn commercial. You got to give away a lot of it. And I feel the same way when you get into real estate, you've got to have transactions or you're never going to build a base for referrals. So it's better to have lots of transactions that you pay a lot for or a lot out on than have no transactions where you pay very little for. It's always better to have more, even if your net is less with a lot more work. You have to have clients closed or you're never going to build a base of sphere. So I do appreciate the thought of Zillow giving you opportunities and then you have to pay a lot for it, but it gets closings, it gets you future referrals, it gets proof, it gives you experience, it gives you everything you need, and you're actually working. It's better than not working.
And also those low end, and they don't have to be low end, but those Zillow leads, which to me were on the lower side when I started, got me into seeing properties. And then I became more of an expert in my market because I was going into apartments, into condos, into townhouses, into homes. And when people started asking me, I'm like, oh, I know that house. I've been there 3 times. So then I became a local market expert in the zip codes that I was paying for because I was all over that zip code. And then my first year, when I probably did 25 deals, and then you keep moving up. And so I do think it's important. I think it's very important to obviously, you don't take the biggest thing is even from a listing standpoint, you don't take percent to the bank, you take dollars to the bank. And I've been flexible in what I charge on some of my listings because there might have been a strategy for it. Right now, I have the biggest house in my market is under contract, is going to sell for $3.6 million. Right. And the seller didn't want to pay traditional commissions because they figured, why should you get paid double? Because my house is twice the size. It doesn't take you that much effort. I agreed. And I also know that you don't take percent to the bank, but that check that I'm going to get at the closing is going to go in the bank and it's a lot of money. So that's what I like about real estate and is that I have the ability to be my own boss and to make my own decisions. And whatever percent I charge or don't charge is based off of between myself and our client, not because there's a mandate, there's a federal law, there's a state law, or there's a brokerage rule.
Yeah.
So so
Yeah. Congrats on that listing. It's fantastic.
it was other people had it before me, but they didn't sharpen their pencil. And what's interesting is that listing also, what are they going to do? Where are they going? So it turned out that they were very close to either renting a property or buying a property. I had to sharpen my pencil on their buy and so we were very close to either renting, not through me, because they were going to go direct
Owner.
to the owner.
Yeah.
And when I sharpened my pencil, they made the decision, fine, let's go buy it. It was that dropped the price to a price point that made sense. So that's $56,000 total commission that I wouldn't have had if I wouldn't have been flexible. And I think 56,000 for buy and a sell combined, I'm okay with that, right?
That's more than 99% of us are saying. So it's
And
fantastic.
what's interesting is when I read a lot in Facebook and other chats, they're like, oh, you discount this and you discount that. And I'm like, I don't even answer them because it's not worth it. But listen, everyone's got to do what's best for themselves and their business. But, and a lot of times the chatter in those chats are just chatter, right? I try to ignore them because it's not helping me grow my business or my team's business.
I think about it. Someone taught me this a while back. He thinks about the psychology of things. And the reality is, we don't know your story. Okay. What if this guy did 3 houses with you prior? Why wouldn't you discount it? I mean, there's a lot of things that we don't know that go into making the decision to make it a win-win for everybody. And ultimately, I want a client that leaves feeling satisfied that we were able to accomplish what they were trying to accomplish. And sometimes there just isn't enough room to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish. It happens. My average ticket is about 380,000, which is a little below the market where I'm at. That's why I have to sell so many houses.
Yeah.
And many times my sellers don't have equity and my buyers don't have a lot of cash. So there comes to a point where what do I do to solve this problem? And it may come in that your commission becomes a part of solving the problem. It can happen for sure, but you got to know the whole story.
If your average price point's 360 or under 400, and I'm getting things that are a million, 2 million, 3 million, almost 4 million, it's totally, we might work the same amount of hours doing it. So you got to do. I'm not going to lose something because of that. You talked about like some of my investors that I've done multiple houses with. I'm giving them like a VIP discount I know that they can go to other people, and certainly they enjoy working with me and we've had really good success. But you know what? It's the golden rule, right? If I was doing that, I would want someone to catch me a little bit of a break, especially if we're consistently doing it. But like you said, you don't know. And some of my deals might be that I don't have to do staging because they pay for the staging themselves. And there's a whole like litany of things that could be run differently.
Sure, absolutely.
If you started today, what would be your advice for yourself different than when you started over 20 years ago?
It, I'm an outrageous entrepreneur. That's a little harder because I have a lot of energy and passion in doing what I'm doing. I see a vision and where we're going on everything. But agents don't have that in general. If I'm going to advise someone starting out would be different than maybe the way I would do it. I would tell everyone always connect with team used to be a really good thing 10, 15 years ago, and it'd be something you could stay in forever. But I don't think you can long term, but you certainly can short term. I think your first 3 to 5 years, be a buyer agent and become the best buyer agent you can be. Get really proficient at it. And then when you feel comfortable enough, then you can make that entrepreneurship jump and then do everything, do the listings, do the buy side. It may be your fit, it may not. Maybe you're just inevitably really wanting to niche buyers, but you got to find a space that is your niche. And I would join someone that can help support you, even if they're taking up the 50% of your money. It's worth it if they're good and they can teach you and coach you and they're willing to put the energy in. I also would offer them a commitment. Daniel, I know you've trained people that have left you. We all have. They've become successful, they've gone off, they've done great things. And it's hard after you put in the time and effort and now it's time to get paid, they leave. I've gone through numerous agents that go through that and they just reach a phase. And it's part of life. I would make the commitment to whoever you join. Hey, I'll give you a solid 2 years. Teach me everything you got. As long as I have income coming in and things are producing, I'll stay with you. It'd be good for you to make that kind of commitment to whoever you're working with as well, because they're going to go all in to help you. You want to give them a reason to invest in you as well. So that's a couple of my thoughts. Or you have an escalating commission plan. Hey, first 5 transactions, 50-50. The next 5 will go 75-25 or whatever. There's other ways to slice it, but I would find a really good agent that maybe they don't want to take you on, but you can convince them it's worth their time because you're really going to do a good job.
I probably see that without really trying to recruit. I do get people calling me, and there's been some newer agents, which those are the ones that take the most time, right? The time and effort. I guess I'm lucky because being the broker, we actually don't have any teams because there's no reason to have a team, right? Because really everyone's is our team, right? And so let's say if two people wanted to work together, I would just have two people work together, right? And they could operate as a team, but not have to be a team. That's just the people that I currently have. I've
There's a
had
lot of ways to do it. I love that you said that. And I know other places don't do necessarily teams. I think you should never have teams. Everything should be referral agreements. Say, hey, I have to earn your business every single time you give me a referral. If I close it, give me another referral. If I close it, give me another referral. And we'll keep doing the same thing. It's start, stop, right? I think that's a very fair way to do it. But you could just only focus on one thing and be a buyer agent for multiple agents on referrals and say, hey, I'll give you 50%. Just give me deals and just start working them.
I think that clearly, as a newer person, that's what you would do, right? Because it's a lot. You're not going to give a new person a listing referral. Plus, also, you're generally going to take that. The way that I do that is I'll share some of my listings with other agents. Where if it's mine, I'll say, okay, let's work on this. That's the training, right?
Yeah.
So we're working on it together. The good thing is that if I give someone a listing and I'm going to do a split of 50-50, it it's not that much different than a normal split if I didn't do anything, right? So any of my agents would be like, absolutely, let's do it, especially if it's coming from me. And sometimes I have some of my newer agents, so where they come into a listing, but they're not really, it's above a price point that they're comfortable with. They don't know the market. They're like, Danny, can you list with me? I'll always do that. And actually, in being the broker, I have the ability to there are listings that I've done where I've probably done the bulk of the work, but I won't take anything less than what their normal split is because you do get like MLS credit, and that's my training, right? So I love listings, so I don't mind doing it. And in the end of the day, it's not bad having more listings, even though it's not always about the dollars and cents. So so I actually created my brokerage so I didn't have to listen to other brokers. And if my agents are able to cover what my fixed costs are, then it's basically me being a broker without a split. That's
Yeah.
that's
I love
you
that.
know,
And I agree with you. I mean, whatever I agree with up front, I usually try to have something agreed early on. And most of my agreements are already predefined. I've done so many of them. I know what my expectation is. For example, if I have, and I get a lot of agents that give me opportunities. And if they have a license, I usually go 50-50 with on them because they can do it themselves and I get nothing. So I'm cool. I'll take 50-50 and I'll go work the deal and I get full credit. It counts towards me being an icon at EXP. I get the transaction credit. I get all my money back, my cap, because at EXP, you have a $16,000 cap. If you icon, they give you the $16,000 back. So I actually make more money off the broker than the broker makes on me. That's why I would never be an independent broker. But I do that because I have people giving me deals and I'll go 50-50. How many referrals would you do? You typically would say 20 to 30% would be the referral, but I want the deal and I know that they can do it themselves. I'll take it on. Now, I usually
right.
put them to work. I usually make them drive out the sign and take the lockbox and maybe do a showing or open house. I make them do work, but I'm going to do the work that's going to sell the home.
You'll like with me. So I did 65 deals last year for 42 million. My brokerage did. I think we did 150 transactions for 75 million. I'm still putting the signs in the lawn. I don't pay anyone to do that. I have no admin because to me, I want to be a part of the deal, right? So on my
Sure.
deals, I'm the one doing the memo. I don't need to tell someone how to do it. So then I have to oversee it. Just do it. It's not that difficult. You're doing twice as much as me. So it's a little different, but I feel like at 65, I can still do it. Plus, I'm obviously managing the other 70 or whatever that are
Sure.
done for my agents. But I love it. So it's not really that big of a deal. I think we've talked about a lot of people talk about side hustles. I'm more about this and doing this well. But what's your view on side hustles and what are some of the things that you've done or that you've seen people have done that are both successful and not successful?
I like it. No one's actually asked me that before. I do have thoughts on it because the market has been challenging probably for 97% of real estate agents. It's a large percentage. They don't make enough in order to stay in business. So, what would I say to them? I always start with Sphere first. If that is not generating money today fast enough, then I thought of two things that would be a good fit that doesn't take them out of real estate. One would be we have something called Showzami, and it's a showing service. So you can join that, open up your county and say, I'll take any showings in this county and they'll pay you, let's say about 50 bucks a showing. Okay. Side money, still doing the same business. You're not leaving the business. You can control when you're open and when you're not, just kind of like Uber. So you can just say, hey, this afternoon I'm good. I'll show houses this afternoon. And then they'll give you opportunities. You say, yes, I'll do it. You set up the showings, you show them, you get paid right there. Because after the showing is done, the invoice goes out and they pay you right then. So it's pretty slick. The second option would be getting a notary is very cheap to get. And I don't know how you do it in New York, but here you can remote close. You don't have to go to a attorney's office or anything like that. And you can close documents for about 100 bucks a closing. And you can stay. I know someone that was doing it within her own county. So she never left the county. And she did 5 closings every single day, Monday through Friday, for $100 each. That's 500 bucks she makes a day on 1099 income. She still has to take all the taxes out, but that's not a bad little side gig, and that's her full time. She's not doing any real estate. So maybe you can do that for $300 to $400 extra a week, knock out some closings. So it keeps you in the business. It teaches you some new aspects to the business because you learn about closing documents and things like that. And I just like that it doesn't take you out of the business. That's really important. And plus it leaves your weekends and evenings generally free because most title companies don't do closings when they're closed. So after about 5:30 or 6, they don't want to be having the notary calling them. You understand? So that's some
Yeah.
thoughts.
We're a lawyer state, so I'm also licensed in Connecticut. which still is a lawyer state. But I actually appreciate that we're able to use lawyers because I like to be an expert in real estate.
Yeah.
I don't like to be an expert in lawyering because that's not what I do. Although people joke that I'm like a paralegal to some of my lawyers because of what I do. But so yeah, so the notary thing wouldn't really work in our, but there are the showing things is interesting because I feel that so I'm not just a buyer. I'm a buyer's agent and a listing agent because I have clients in different that are in different
Is this
pieces of what they're doing.
sure?
But when I started out, I was clearly more of a buyer's agent. Then I got my first listing through a referral of my sphere. It was actually shockingly, I worked out at a gym. I didn't do it enough, but it was my trainer. One of his clients needed to sell an apartment, and that was my first one. And that led to so many other things. So I don't like this pigeonhole saying that you are a buyer's agent or a listing agent, but clearly with less experience, or it's easier to be a buyer's agent because, but I think you would always do both, right? Because when someone's telling me they want to buy a $4 million co-op in Manhattan, I'm going to be a buyer's agent for that. But it's interesting with the showing. I generally try to show whenever I can my clients. The only time that I wouldn't would be like if I'm out of town, and then I would basically try to hire agents in my brokerage that I say, and I'm more generous. I pay them $100 a showing because they're in my brokerage. But it is interesting that the service would have that some people are like, I'm not going to even show you the house. I'm going to pay someone to go show you the house, and then I'll work to help you buy the house. That's fun. That's a interesting concept for me. So,
The idea is to keep you in real estate and not take you out of real estate as a side hustle. I don't want to see
uh,
you doing Uber or Home Depot. I want to see you staying in real estate. And I can come up with a lot of other ideas, right? You can source off-market properties by cold calling directly and then finding a wholesale company they call it acquisition and disposition. So you can do the acquisition side, making cold calls to direct to sellers that are in positions where they need to move and they need a cash offer. I don't do direct to seller. I don't do direct to anyone. Remember, I don't do any cold business, but I do get a lot of people that call me because they can't move a property. And then I provide them my own off-market team,
right.
which I do have an off-market team, and they move the property for me. And then I become the acquisition and then they do the disposition side. So that's another hustle that you can do. You can do BPOs. That used to be a real popular thing. I've talked to people that are still doing BPOs today.
Right.
Broker price opinions for a bank that just needs to evaluate a property to determine foreclosure status. They need a value, and they don't want to
Yep.
pay for an appraiser, so they'll pay a broker.
Yep. And also you can do that. And there's other things like I think staying in real estate is what's important. A lot of times people are like, what else I'm going to do? The other thing is you can be maybe try to be someone's transaction coordinator. So you're still involved
Sure.
in the business where you might know it. But that is when the market keeps going up and up, more people try to get involved in real estate world and they think it's so easy, but it's hard, right? We're our own bosses. We're responsible for healthcare. We're responsible for our own retirement funding, whether we're going to do it or not do it. And so it's certainly not an industry for everyone, right? You really need to be a self-starter and see opportunity and work really hard. I remember years back, I was offered a job to work in a senior living center in sales and marketing. And then I was like, oh, I'd have to either work a Saturday or Sunday. I can't do that. And now look at us where we work basically every day, including weekends. It's crazy. What do you think is the state? We talked a little bit about the state of the real estate brokerages. What do you think? What are good brokerages? What are aspects of good brokerages that can help agents? Where do you think between virtual, brick and mortar, where do you think that the industry is going to be going in the near term?
I'll talk through this pretty quick because it's a pretty deep conversation. Back in early 2000s, the internet kind of broke the need for brokers and brick and mortar. Okay. I want you to follow me for a moment. When they did that, they basically put the information of buy and sell information into the hands of consumers. And when they did that, the consumers started going to agents, not brokers. And when they started going to agents, not brokers, then we started detaching ourselves from building admin costs and expenses that don't do anything to add value to the transaction. And when you did, that's what brought the rise of the cloud-based model, which allows you to leverage everything you need and only pay for what you need. The problem is we lose community. A cloud-based model, excellent for leverage, excellent for me. I don't need five people in my office and we all chit chat about real estate. I'm driven. I'm going to get after it. I'm going to call all my clients until they tap out. Like I'm going to get after it. I know 99% of agents don't have that in them. They need camaraderie, they need community. And so that's where the cloud-based brokerage has grown and given opportunity, but it also is breaking at that space. I think the future is still going to have to be cloud-based. I think the brick and mortar business model and franchise model is eventually going to, it's going to work in niche markets. It's going to work in certain specific spaces. It's going to continue to be what it is because it's comfortable. The community knows it. They expect, they know what to get. But I think it's going to go from, let's say it's 50-50 today, and I don't even think it is. I think it's less than that. But it's going to probably go like 80-20 over the next probably 5 to 10 years. And AI is going to make that accelerate even faster because it's really going to focus on cloud, really focuses on technology. Technology is going to be the way we do things. AI is not going to replace you, Daniel, but you got to learn how to use it. It's one of those things. AI is not going to replace us as agents in the next 5 years. It might in the next 10 or 15 years, as scary as that is. But AI isn't going to replace us on the transaction process because there's so many nuances and things about real estate AI can't address or fix. But at some point, it probably can. But in the near future, we've got to embrace that. So I would just tell you that the models are moving towards technology-driven models. And I think, unfortunately, for both you and I, we're both in percentage-based models. I think it's going to end up being in a flat fee because the problem is the value of the broker is diminished to a very small level. Okay. It used to be that your name, your brand, all those things made a difference to the consumer. If any of your agents went to another agency, all of their clients go with them. They're not going to call you. It doesn't belong to Remax. You can sign non-competes and all
But
kinds of things.
but you know what? But not me going into it, I never expect that they should be mine.
Sure.
I'm really the broker because there are rules and regulations that I have to make sure that
Yep.
the my agents underneath me are following. But I don't own their business. I know technically I do own the listings and all
Yep.
that. It's really and I guess that's why my core of 10 or 15 agents that I have enjoy working because I don't tell them what to do. I will guide them what the rules are. But if they say, today I was overseeing a listing, the person's newer in Connecticut. So I was looking at the listing agreement and it's a friend of theirs. So they were offering discounts and all that. And I would never, I don't tell them what they have to pick for their buyer's agents or their listing, whatever they want. I've had an agent who was listing a rental house for his church and we talked about what do you want to do and he ends up that he's donating his services to the church. I go, great. So that means I'm getting zero, I'm getting my cut of zero, which is fine because ultimately that's a marketing effort, right? He's letting his whole church know that he's the broker, he's representing their church and he's
Sure.
donating his services to the church,
Yeah, it's a purpose over profit. There are opportunities, right? I mean, there are. I do a lot of free training because I know at some point people may want to pay for my training because I've done a lot of it. I don't know what it's good. What do you call it? Good for other people. You're planting seeds with them. You're growing that opportunity. If you'd started 10 years prior, you probably have a different opinion of how brokers look at real estate. But you started in a market where there's a diminished value and realize in the next 5 to 10 years, the legal aspect of the brokerage and the broker is going to continue to diminish because AI is going to be able to solve all your legal challenges. It's
yeah.
going to tell you what you can and can't do on everything. It will.
I think that's exactly right. When I started, I was at two other brokerages, a large one and then a smaller one. And I basically learned along the way what not to do. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do it like that. And so it's always when they say take lemons and make lemonade. I quickly learned. I ended up start opening my brokerage before my in New York. You're supposed to be an agent for 2 years before you become a broker. I did it just under 2 years because there's technicalities that I was able to get my broker's license a slightly bit earlier. But I learned how I was treated and how I would want to treat other people. And then ultimately, listen, it's if you're going to be working so hard and every day and all this with people and clients and all this, try to have fun at what you're doing because at least I realize that I'm providing a service, right? It's not rocket science, it's just real estate. But be good at what you at your business, right? Because again, for first time home buyers or even people that have done it before, we have to know what's going on with the market. We have to know what the current rules are. We have to know what the current technology is to make it as seamless of a transaction and taking care of our clients, their needs as much as we can. So, but it does change. And I like talking to people from around the country because clearly what's going on in Texas has some similarities, but there's also differences as to what's going on in New York and Connecticut.
Sure. We have probably just as many brick and mortar as you guys have. They're all over. And I don't have an issue with them. I just don't know how it's sustainable. In your community and what you're building, it can, people will stay and take less if the community is right to them. You know,
For some people, right? Some people don't like it. I'm don't most of my training is in the field or on the phone. I've never had an office meeting. I think I've had one office meeting in about 8 years.
Hmm.
I just don't do it. And while I do have a brick and mortar, that's just because my Remax franchise requires me to have it. I've
Yeah.
downsized my office because I'm never there. I do hold some signs there. We do have a conference room where closings are done, but besides that, there's nobody that goes in on the daily. It's just not what's done. Where, like you said, I meet people in the field. You start at the first house, right? And I have every now and then I've had somebody that says, I'd like to meet in your office to go over you selling my house. Of course, I'm going to do that, but it's more rare. So here's a question, Shaune. The adventures of a real estate broker is part of it is that some crazy things have happened along the way of getting to a closing table. I've gone into houses for listings that had severed skulls, obviously animals, guns, pornography, all this crazy stuff. People that aren't supposed to be in the house. Give me a story of something crazy that happened to you, either for a listing appointment or showing appointment or something along the way.
Yeah, I got several. I've flipped over 100 homes here in Dallas Fort Worth, so I've seen some houses you would never want to go into. They smell horrible and they're hoarded up to the ceiling. I've done plenty of them. I've I'm trying to think of, I had one that was the downstairs. It was a one-story condo. The entire living room was completely filled with Bud Light cans, completely filled, and in adult diapers everywhere. It smelled
So
horrible.
I have a question. Were the beers and or adult diapers empty or full?
The beers were empty. The diapers were full. How about that?
Okay,
Um,
that's the worst of
yeah,
that was bad. Okay,
yeah,
continue.
yeah. I've had plenty of those type of scenarios. I did have one. It's ironic. It was for one of my agents. He was a client of mine before he became an agent, and the buyer on his house, a month before the closing, he changed his jobs, right? So how about that? Changes jobs. And then a week before closing, they get divorced. They start the divorce process. So it's being, come on, who does this? It's very frustrating. And that was very stressful because his wife literally was in 8 months pregnant when we listed and was actually delivering at the point when all this was falling apart on them. And he is Eeyore for a reason, and he thinks negative about everything, and it really comes through because he has the worst of the worst happen to him. And he was an agent for me for 7 years, and he had 3 or 4 good years, and then he had a couple bad years, bad investors that just turned sideways and suing each other and all that kind of stuff. It's just really frustrating. And now he's out of it again. That one was pretty. He had a heck of a run going through and doing real estate and a lot of pain. I'll tell you one advice for all agents out there. If you learn how to leverage earnest money, you can create a lot of changes to contracts that gives you some freedom. Meaning, if I'm a buyer and I need another week to close because I'm not ready, my lender's not ready, I didn't provide them documents. Remember, I close in a lower price point. So they lose tires on their car, they may not be buying a house for about 3 weeks. Those kind of scenarios. Earnest money will allow you some freedom to do that. It gives the seller a little peace of mind because we can release some of the earnest money and then buy us some additional time, and the buyer can now get the full benefit of the earnest money applied to closing. So that's a strategy. I'm not sure how you guys use earnest money there, but we put up so much, let's say 1% of the house. So if it's 300,000 house, put up 3 grand, and that protects your option, and it gives the seller that interest that you're going to move forward and buy the home. And if you don't buy the home for no reason, just because you don't like it, the seller keeps your money. If you have a reason you can walk, then you get to award the buyer the money back because they couldn't qualify. So that's a tool that I use sometimes to help sellers have peace of mind about extensions. That's a really good tool for agents out there.
And we don't have the 1%. Generally, most of ours would be like an FHA 5% or a 10% down of the total purchase, and you're not allowed to touch the money. So that's so it is a little different. But I think I like that it's you need to be creative within what the rules structure is, right? So I think that helps with the better agent. So I've definitely tried to package some of my offers for buyers in ways that not everyone else will do, that will be acceptable to the seller and working for the buyers. You see what you have to be a business person, right? You have to look at what the situation is, and everything's not cookie cutter, and you try to do the best what you can for the person that you're working for.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much for the time. I love that you give back to the real estate world by your free education and training. And it's because people have helped you along the way. You also have your niche is training. And so that's something that we just need to work on you monetizing that. So that can be one of your side hustles so that you can be the next Tom Ferry type person.
Yeah, he's based here. He's right here in Dallas. That's where Tom Ferry's at.
So he's going to retire soon. Then they need the
Yeah.
next Tom
That's
Ferry. So
exactly right. Yep, that's
Shaune
exactly right.
Corbett will be that person, but closing over 100 deals a year, being an icon of EXP, True West Realty, over 17 years, a host of the Real Estate Sources for DFW. You're involved in so many things, a mentor to many. I want to thank you again for your time this week, and we're excited to have you on the show and have others be able to listen to the podcast and see what Shaune's about. And thank you very much for your time.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Daniel. And anyone out there, I do have my own podcast. If you would mind subscribing to that on YouTube, that's the only thing I ever ask.
So tell us what it
Yeah,
is.
it's Real Estate Success DFW with Shaune Corbett. It actually comes up as RESDFW. That's it. RESDFW on YouTube.
I definitely think if people have time and they're wanting to learn tidbits about our trade, certainly Shaune is a master and people should listen in. Thank you
All right.
very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay, take care.
Thanks for joining me on the adventures of a real estate broker. I hope you enjoyed our time together as much as I did. If you laughed, learned something, or just had a good time, do yourself a favor and subscribe to the podcast. A big shout out to our sponsor, Remax Prestige Properties, for making this all possible. Remember to leave a review if you enjoyed the show. It helps more people find us. Until next time, keep it real, keep it fun, and keep exploring the adventures in your neighborhood. I'm Daniel Berger, your New York realtor, and I'll see you in the next episode.